I have a very special video for you guys today. Here with me is an amazing guest. He has been an online seller for over a decade. And today he has taken the time out of his schedule to be here with us, to share with us those little nuggets and pieces of advice that has kept him selling online for over 10 years. He is very active on both YouTube and Instagram, and he does something that I personally firmly respect. He is so willing and so active with helping new Amazon sellers learn exactly how to sell. And with today's day and age, it's kind of hard to find genuine people who are here using these platforms to honestly help others. And Justin is one of those guys. He knows what he's doing. He has a ton of insight. He is a wealth of knowledge, and he goes by the username, The Winds of Change. So be sure to look below in the description. I will link both his YouTube and his Instagram there because I think he gives very valuable information that you should definitely want to follow. He is a people's people. He is here to help. There's been times that he's wanted to throw in the towel, so he's going to talk to you about all of the shifts he's had to make with his business and how he has really stuck with it and what it has done for him. I know with talking to him personally, the income alone that selling online is bringing to him help him to purchase his house, helps him to get small business loans that he needs. And there is just so much knowledge that we can gain from a seller at his capacity. But before we get started, I'm Cassandra with ProfitGuru, and I do not want you to miss any of our videos. I am here every single week simply for you guys. Me, like Justin, I love to help people and I love to share and educate. Justin, as well as myself, we are both educators. We are trained in the profession of teaching, and it's simply what we love to do. So make sure you subscribe to the ProfitGuru channel because I am here every week for you. Like this video and leave me a comment down below letting me know what you think is the most valuable piece of advice that you gain from Justin. Without further ado, here's Justin, and let's get going with picking his brain at how he's been able to sell online for over a decade. Thank you so much, Justin, for being here with us today. I really appreciate it. I know you are a very busy person, especially spending a lot of time on your Amazon business. So I really want to thank you for taking the time out of it to be here with us. So let's get started by really explaining to us. I know you are a seasoned online seller. You've been doing this for over a decade. So talk to us a little bit about how did you first get started selling online in general?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate that. It's always a joy to talk about reselling in the community, on the YouTube platform especially. It's where I learned a lot of what I know about reselling. I got started years ago. I mean, my first FBA shipment to Amazon was 2012 with a shipment of books and some clearance toys from Walmart. But before that, I was actually doing some eBay. And this is back, some of you might remember this, but like half price books used to be able to go on and sell through there, just college textbooks that I didn't need anymore, that I could get more selling online than I could returning them to the school. And I really saw the potential for it. Amazon has just sort of streamlined everything though from eBay. I prefer it because like you don't have to take pictures, you don't have to make descriptions and do any catchphrases or anything like that. So that really helped me being in college and working and also trying to make some money on the side. I really just started because I liked the extra income, right? I mean, there's been times in my life where I've needed that to make ends meet. And then there's been times where it's just allowed me to buy some extra cool stuff, you know, that I really wanted. So I really got started really, I think with that, just, you know, hey, I can make more money off this book selling it online than I can turning it back in to the school. And then I started watching YouTube videos about other things that people were selling. And this was, you know, years ago. So there wasn't this whole like community of, you know, professional sellers that have been selling for 2 years. I mean, this was like just grassroots. A lot of, you know, we're buying this from thrift stores, we're buying this from discount stores, and we're reselling it. And so I really, sort of caught my eye, and I learned a lot from just watching those YouTubers. Pretty much how I got started. Used books from library sales, from thrift stores, from discount stores. They got a real low entry level, right? You pay a quarter for them, $1 for them, and sell them for 10, 15, 20 bucks.
It's really funny that you mention textbooks, because when people ask me about my journey and how I got started, I never considered that, but that is exactly where I got started as well. I would pay so much money for all of these textbooks, and then when they would rebuy them back, a book that cost me $100, they would want like $10 to return it to them. So I did the same exact thing. That's kind of nice to hear. That is literally where I started as well, with reselling my textbooks from college. So you started first with those books and eBay, which I feel is really common for a lot of sellers. Like you said, the entry level, it's so easy to get into. You don't need a lot of capital. You can find books for so cheap and then just flip them for a profit. But how did you first learn about selling on Amazon in particular? I feel like every Amazon seller, they remember the first time that they saw the idea of Amazon. I sure know that I remember mine when I first made that connection, like, oh my God, people can actually sell on Amazon. I thought it was just Amazon selling to people. I didn't even realize it was third-party sellers like you and I. So how did you make that realization that you could go from used books and eBay to the world of Amazon?
Well, I think for me, and maybe because it's been so long ago, I really don't have this. Well, I'll take that back. I do have sort of an aha moment, but it's not as vivid, I think, as maybe some other people's. I sort of have always been looking for different avenues, right? Like even today, I still like think, oh, Macari or Poshmark, or there's all kinds of different ways. I think I just heard about it, like it popped up on my like YouTube feed or social media or something like that, and then I just had a general interest. But sort of my aha moment, which is sort of at the same time vague now, it's only vague because I don't remember who wrote the book. And I actually tried to find who wrote this book, and I could not find it in my Amazon order history or anywhere. It was about retail arbitrage, and the story was there was a guy who wrote this book who found a robot toy that was discounted, and then he sent it in through FBM, and then the profit margin that he made. And I read that book, and it's sad because like I don't want to say it changed my life. In a way, it sort of did though, because it really got me involved on Amazon. But it's unfortunate that I can't remember, the name of it. And it was written, however many years ago. It's probably outdated by now. But that was really it. Being, aware of it through other people who I was currently watching, like on eBay, selling on eBay, showing Amazon as an alternative, and then also reading that one specific book and hearing that one story that sort of opened my eyes up to the possibility of it.
It's so funny that you say Poshmark, because I literally did the same thing. I did the used textbooks, and then I found out about Poshmark. I feel like I just made a connection that reselling is like born into us. I've always thought of ways, even when I was younger, like how can I like sell my used clothes? Or so it's funny that like we've traveled the same journey, and ultimately like Amazon is the big end game. We've got like the eBay and the Poshmark, and it all like leads you up. I feel like to be a good reseller, it's something that's like born into you. You see the value of like repurposing stuff and being thrifty and being frugal. It's really neat to see like the evolution.
It was crazy back then because there weren't all these third-party softwares, right? Like you had the Amazon app that could sort of tell you the fee breakdown, but it's significantly easier now with all of the stuff out there, ProfitGuru and all the other ones, to see how much you're actually going to make. Like when you're doing those other platforms, it's just different to me, right? Like if I scan something in store with the Amazon app, I can pretty much tell what it's going to be, right? If you try to look up what to sell, like on eBay or Poshmark or Macari, like the search process is just, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Those for me are all like plan Bs. Like, hey, if this doesn't sell on Amazon or something happened, can I offload it onto this other site, right? But they're definitely not my first go-to by any means, just because Amazon has so many user-friendly, ease of use kind of things to help you make buying decisions.
Exactly. Like with eBay and Poshmark, it's kind of like getting lucky. Like you're going to find something at the thrift stores and it might sell and it might not. But like with Amazon and the software capabilities we have now, they literally tell us what's selling, how much we're going to make, like how to get it. It really is pretty much handed to you where it wasn't back in the day doing like eBay.
Yeah.
I have come to hate eBay. Like I shut my store down. It's still like active, but it's like on vacation mode permanently. Like
Yeah.
you said, just for those cases, like if
Yeah.
I kind of buy something overload and then something happens to that listing, I have the backup to eBay, but that's not my first go-to.
No, not at all. Amazon is definitely a lot easier. And just in the business world in general, like if you think about like keepagraphs and stuff like that, that's not even something that other companies have, right? Like if you're
No.
selling metal or you're selling product goods, I mean, you're having to read the market based on your experience and other things that are out there. But a lot of places can't go have, keep a kind of data chart that tells them sales over the last few months and all that kind of stuff. So it's really actually a unique sort of opportunity to have all third-party things that Amazon has.
Absolutely. The data analytics, they're handed to us if you can be like that lifelong learner and train yourself how to use it, which Keepa is not that hard to learn. It's
Nope.
all right there for you. So you have been in the game of online selling for a long time. And I'm sure that your plan of attack has kind of shifted and changed. Like you've been mentioning, it changed from eBay to Amazon. So tell us a little bit more about how your plan of attack to selling online has kept you selling, but how you've had to transition or pivot here and there.
Yeah, so my plan of attack is it's evolved several times over the last 10 plus years. So when I first started, it was what can I buy that I can afford, and then what's the profit I can make off of it. So I would go to library sales, and that was a big bulk of my traveling. That was a big bulk of my income was used books, and then thrift store items as well. But I really started sort of, I guess, stepping up in a way. But the capital that I had to spend on inventory really went up. And the more that I made, the different jobs that I had, just as I grew, right? Just in general, as a person and getting out of college and having a bigger stockpile to spend, I started doing things like going to TJ Maxx, going to Marshalls, going to Ollie's, going to Big Lots, and doing more of a retail arbitrage with new items. So the biggest transition I think for me would be selling used items into selling new items. Now I've always done retail arbitrage for the most part. I have done online arbitrage with some success. I've looked into wholesale, but maybe it's just because I'm used to retail arbitrage that I stay in that grind, or maybe I just like the thrill of the hunt, so to speak. And I think maybe that's what it is too. Going out to stores, finding the items, processing them, and getting them in to Amazon. So the kinds of places that I've sourced from have changed. And then not to mention, you have to adapt with every time Amazon changes something, right? You have to adapt with that. So you could have an item and you could say you have 100 of an item, you're fine to sell it, and then you send them in Amazon, and then the next week Amazon says, nope, it's restricted now. You can't sell that without documentation from the distributor or a letter from the manufacturer, and then you have to overcome that hurdle. There was a big deal a few years ago. It's been years now, but like where you would buy a book and sell it as new, right? Because it was new, you bought it off the shelf. And then there was this big mass ban of people who were selling books as new, and people were getting their accounts suspended and all that kind of stuff. Allegedly, right? I don't know any personally that happened to, but that's always something to overcome. The Amazon changing the way that they do things, you're always going to have to sort of change how you approach. For example, recently, Amazon got rid of the small and light program, right? Where I think it was, and you have to correct me if I'm wrong, I think if it was $10.99 and under, you got the discounted fee for just the Amazon fees in general. But now they got rid of that whole thing. And so now it's $9.99 and under. So you really have to change your plan of attack, because with a lot of programs, especially repricers and stuff like that, depending on how you have it set up, or if you're just not aware, you may think, hey, I'm going to sell this for $10.50 and make more than the guy selling it for $9.50. But you're actually losing a couple dollars, right? So it's just being aware of those changes Amazon makes, and then doing the best you can to sort of move around them and make the most profit that you can.
Yeah, with that small and light that you're talking about, that's just one good example of a setback. So it was $10, under $10, and under 3 pounds. But what was really unique about that program when they had the small and light is that you were not just automatically enrolled. Like
Oh
you had
yeah.
to be educated and know about the program and then
Mhm.
know how to enroll the ASIN into the program in order to get the benefits. So now how they're doing it different is they're not making people have to know that. If your item meets that $10 below or 3 pounds below, you are automatically in it. So it really stings for people like me who was taking advantage of it with wholesale because they were giving us a bigger discount on the fees. And now the fees they went up. So where there was maybe a little bit of profit margin with some things, and there was also a benefit because not all sellers knew about it.
Yeah.
Now everybody's getting the benefit and the advantage isn't as much. They're taking more in fees. So that's just one really good example of a setback.
Yeah.
Also, you talking about sending 100+ ASINs in. That literally just happened to me last week. Even the most seasoned sellers that know what to look for, know what to do, we still encounter a ton of setbacks. I made a brand new listing with the brand and I thought it was safe. I thought I did my research. And then once I started selling units, like they really started selling, the velocity picked up. Amazon came at me and I received an IP and I was like, what? Really? I thought this was safe. So
Yep.
now that was like probably 150 units that I'm done
Yeah.
with now. So
Yeah.
thinking of setbacks, we all have them as sellers. It's just a part of our journey. So for me, my biggest setback literally was that FBA, the small and light kind of changing that changed my whole plan, my wholesale plan of attack. And then this with the units, that's happened to me twice. So twice now I have loaded a lot of money into two specific ASINs that have just been completely shut down and I was stuck with those products and out the money.
Yeah.
For you, I think
Yeah.
it's super important that like we share this with new people so that they know what to look out for. I love being transparent with our audiences. What do you think for you personally has been some of your big setbacks and how did you overcome them and stick with it? Because some people, if they face $1,000 setback, they might just throw in the towel and quit with it. So what have you experienced and how did you just stick with it and overcome it?
Yeah, and you're 100% right. You're going to have setbacks in any business that you do, right? I think the thing with Amazon though, you want to start out with this like mindset of this is a business, this is long term, right? Because you're already going to be set back out of the gate. If somebody starts Amazon and they think, hey, I'm going to take $100 and I'm going to buy these items and then I'm going to make $200 and I'm going to have that money right away, it doesn't work like that, right? So you have to wait for the stuff to ship, wait for it to be dispersed to you, and then pay off whatever it is you need to pay off, pay the fees and all that. So I think for me, we share that in common. My biggest setback has been items that I have been selling, and then all of a sudden Amazon says not only that you can't sell them, but we're not even giving you the option to get ungated in it. This is now a brand that you can't even apply to sell. And then that's where, for me, those other avenues come in, right? Like eBay, Poshmark, Mercari, that kind of stuff. And those have been lifesavers, if nothing else, just to sort of get your money back. Another setback that happens more often than I think anybody admits is that you'll look at the data. Everything looks good for the past 90 days. Say this item's been selling for $20. I'm going to make X amount of profit. You go in deep because you're like, yep, this is a good one. And then like literally I've had it to where it's like within the next 2 days, the seller count goes up and the price just hits. It doesn't ever recover seemingly. There's items that I used to buy years ago that I made good profit on, and it's been years and it still has not recovered. So I mean that's always unfortunate. That, and just I've had some stores that I source at consistently and then they just shut down, right? The store shuts down, whether it's a wholesale or a liquidator or like a department store. And when you're doing retail arbitrage, you're sort of semi-limited to the amount of miles you can drive and what you have around you. And I've had stores just shut down. And then it's like, okay, now where am I going to go, right? I was making a lot of money from this one place. Where do I go now? To overcome that, you just sort of adapt, right? Like I'm always looking for new items, always looking for new ways to sell, new brands to be aware of. And so you just keep pushing forward, right? I think having that long game mentality is really going to keep you in there, because at the end of the month, when I look at the end of the month and I look how much profit that I made, my profit's calculated based on the items that you actually sold minus everything with what's left over. So it doesn't account for all the inventory that I have that I haven't sold yet. So I could have some items that I've spent X amount of dollars on still in inventory. Maybe I took a little bit of a loss on, or they're going to break even now. But when you look at the profit over the month, I think that always encourages me. Like, I may have lost on this end, but I've gained a lot on, this other end with this other item. So it's just, you just keep pushing, keep learning. It's definitely not for the faint of heart. It's not a get rich quick scheme by any means.
You made a ton of really great points there that I agree with them all. But what really stands out to me, and probably you as well, because I know we're both people that like to help others, is the fact that you can look at something and it looks so steady, and all of a sudden there's way too much competition and that buy box is just going to tank. And I feel like people get upset with me when they're like, tell me something you're selling, tell me something to sell. There's only so much we can share. Like, we literally cannot tell you those ASINs, because if we do, we have money in that. And if we tell you, we're telling everybody. And now there's going to be too much competition, not enough demand, and we're going to lose money. So with us not telling people specifically what to sell, number one, you could sell anything. Like, just because that's the niche we like doesn't mean that's the niche you need to go with. But number two, we are literally digging our own grave money-wise if we tell people what we're selling, because then we're not going to make any sales. So I'm glad that you said that. I don't want people to think that we're being mean by not telling them, but we're literally shooting ourselves in the foot if we do, because we can only share so much. Give us some really honest advice that you can tell specifically new sellers who are starting, maybe watching this video and thinking of getting started today. What do you think Amazon is posing to us sellers as maybe the biggest obstacle right now that new sellers should be aware of coming into the game today?
The first one is the fear in your own mind, right? Is this going to work? Can I do this? Where am I going to get these products at? And it's too confusing. I don't understand it. And that's pretty easily overcome, right? You just start small, build your confidence. But another obstacle that Amazon offers today is there's so many products that are gated, and gated means they're restricted. Like, you can't sell them without proof that you're getting from a legitimate source. When I started 10 years ago, it wasn't like that. It was like the Wild West. I mean, you could buy Nike, Barbie, Adidas, Sony, whatever it was, you could buy it and you could sell it. As Amazon grew and pretty much exploded, really, brands were like, oh, no, hold on. You can't, this has got to change, right? So Amazon doing what it needs to do to maintain its level of legitimacy and just being able to be the giant that it is, had to make some changes. And unfortunately, a lot of people got hit on the end of that. But now, being a new seller, I mean, I forget sometimes how many things are gated, even though I'm still gated. And it surprises me. There's a ton of stuff that I'm still like, oh, okay, yeah, really. But I figure out how to overcome it now. But when new sellers come on, they're like, man, I can't sell any of this stuff. Everything's restricted. So I think that's definitely an obstacle, because you're not going to have, the selling metrics and the history with Amazon to get those auto approvals that happen a lot of times, or maybe have the knowledge to get ungated in those things like that to be able to sell them. So I think that, and then, lastly, I think not understanding what you're selling. Like, for example, looking at Keepa charts and data charts and stuff like that, historical revenue, you could buy something that says, I'm going to pay 10 for it, I'm going to sell it for 30, and I'm going to make, $10, $5, $7, whatever it is. And you think, okay, I searched it with the Amazon app or the online, you say ProfitGuru or whatever you're using to determine the profit margin. This looks good, I'm going to go in. But then if you would have done a little bit more research, you would have found out that, yeah, I mean, it's $30 today, but it's historically been $19. And you miss that sort of back end info and you go in deep, you're gonna be frustrated, because maybe that item stays at 30 or maybe it doesn't. It could have just been out of stock, or it could have been seasonal, or whatever it is. It's not always the first, price that you see when you look for something. So I think that's another obstacle, is definitely not being familiar with the trend, and then also the research methods that a lot of Amazon sellers use.
Lots of really good golden nugget pieces of advice there for beginner sellers. Personally, I think, like you said, being gated in so many things, it makes people feel so frustrated and want to throw in the towel from the beginning. But I always tell them, find what you are ungated in. For me, it was pet toys and crafts and office supplies, and start there. Once you are selling and you prove you're a good seller, you will get ungated in more things. It will be easier. Talking about too many sellers quitting, what I think is prematurely, why haven't you quit in over a decade? You have stuck it out through so many trials and errors and so many setbacks. So for you, what really makes you stick with it, and why is it worth it?
Definitely, there's definitely been times where I've almost thrown in the towel. Just recently, actually, last year, I was frustrated. I was like, I'm not really making any money like I was. When I go to the stores, I'm not really finding anything. I've tried these other sourcing methods, and I was just frustrated, right? The reality is I was really narrow on what I was sourcing, and I wasn't finding good things like that anymore in the stores that I was going to. So I'd failed to, sort of broaden the items that I'm doing, and I was ready. I was ready to throw in the towel. And I told my wife, I was like, I think I'm just going to pack it up and I'm just going to end it. And I was like, no, that sort of sucks, because then you're going to have to redo it all. But I actually had another guy, actually Rob from Bluegrass Profits. He reached out to me through YouTube, on Instagram. Saw my YouTube channel, reached out on Instagram. And he is so crazy, because he shared one lead with me. He said, "Hey man, have you seen these?" Right? It was the item, and I was like, "No, I haven't. What's going on with them?" And he showed me the profit, and I was like, "All right, I'm going to go out and see if I can find those." And I did, right? And I found them, and then I sold them, and I made good profit. And so that actually just sparked another fire under me, and I was like, "Hey, there's still stuff out there. Maybe I just need to change some of the categories I'm looking." And then really last year was one of my strongest, years ever, that I've ever had. And so it just took that, I think, hearing from somebody else, this still works. And that wasn't his intent. Like when he did that, he had no idea what was going on in my brain. Staying fresh on leads, maybe it's a leads list you get or something like that, but just not staying pinned down into the niche that you're comfortable with. If it's not working, maybe branching out into something else. That's really sort of what got me going again. So staying fresh and just continually learning new products, new things to sell, and new ways of doing stuff.
That is honestly a crazy story to hear. I'm a firm believer that people are put into our lives. Like it could look like the smallest little thing, but it happens for a reason. Like we meet people for a reason, we go through things for a reason, for a bigger purpose. And Rob not even realizing that you needed that, like he was put there to keep you going. So I feel like we should definitely do a little plug here at Bluegrass Profits. You can find him on YouTube and Instagram. He is a really great guy. He did an interview here with us as well. So he is definitely a genuine person. Just like Justin, if you are looking for advice on how to sell, those are the types of people who are in your corner and they are really eager to help out. So if you could look back to the past 10 years of you selling, it has been quite a journey of a decade, I'm sure, for you. Do you think there's anything that you might have done differently along the way?
Things that I would have done differently are not hold back as much. Sort of a double-edged sword, right? I tend to lean more towards the cautious of, yeah, I could buy all these items, but what if it doesn't work out? I think I would trust the data, and I would have gone in heavier on a few items as well. I love retail arbitrage, but maybe I would have looked more into wholesale than I did. I've dabbled in wholesale, and I've gotten items from wholesalers, and I have a few accounts set up. It's just not as fun for me. But I think maybe if I could have been one of those people that's like, hey, I order it and then I have it sent over to Amazon, and then it's all hands off, and I just make all this kind of money, that would have been awesome, right? Because it's a lot of work. If you don't have a prep center to buy things, get things prepped, get them sent out, it takes a lot of time. So I think maybe something like that. I don't want to say it's held me back, but I still battle with that. Like, do I take them all? Do I clear the shelf? And I find myself doing that more and more this last year. And it's been working out. And even if it doesn't, it's not, the end of the world. Of course, I have to make, I'm not going to like empty my savings or take out a second mortgage or something to get anything that risky. But just going in more in depth, I think it would have done that a little bit more. And yeah, just maybe, honestly, I would have done more fulfilled by merchant, I think, to a point where it's manageable, because a lot of things I'm finding fulfilled by merchant, I can get them out the door and sometimes even make a little bit more profit on them. So maybe would have messed around with that a little bit more as well.
Being an Amazon seller, analysis paralysis and taking risk are definitely two things that you're going to have to encounter, like you said. There are some times when, like you said, trust the data. Even when the data looks perfect and you've done all your research, you're still going to find yourself in this analysis paralysis where you're like, did I do a good enough job? Is it saying what I think it's saying? Should I buy this much? So there's definitely a level of risk involved selling on Amazon. And as a new seller, you have to be ready for that, to be able to know when to look at the risk and to pull the trigger, to not just get so paralyzed in looking at the data and finally go with it. One piece of advice that I always give is to test buy. Like if the data is showing you can easily come in and sell 50 units, but you're kind of scared to do that, we'll start with 10. And then if those 10 sell through, then for the next buy, then you can unload a little more.
Yeah, and man, test buy. We were talking about that the other day with a couple of friends of mine, and there was I think just anywhere around Q4, like I was sending in Amazon boxes daily, and they were taking 3-4 weeks to even process. And so we were like, man, you can't even test buy right now because I want to send in 20 to see if they sell. But in the 4 weeks that it takes to get there, the price is fluctuated, and it's just like, so sometimes even still, you gotta pull the trigger.
That's a good point, though. Q4 probably is not the best time to test buy because those warehouses are so backed up. And like you mentioned, taking advantage of FBM even more. That's what I like to tell the audience too, that FBM is going to be your best friend in Q4. If you found something that is selling off the shelves, maybe like the end of November, they're not going to be able to check that in time. So in that circumstance, merchant fulfill that and you can make a ton of money off of it. And going back to Rob, I know he utilizes that a lot as well, towards Halloween too. So with those Halloween costumes, really those seasonal things, those holidays that are big, the warehouse gets so overpacked that it could take them, like Justin said, 3 to 4 weeks to check that stuff in. In that case, it's good to know how to merchant fulfill as your backup, and you can really capitalize on those periods of time just by finding a couple of good ASINs.
Yeah, and if you're doing fulfilled by merchant, make sure that you have packing supplies on hand. You don't want to end up selling 20 things and then you're like, how am I going to ship this out, right? So make sure you have at least some boxes and some bags on hand before you get set up to sell on fulfilled by merchant.
So Justin, you have a really great YouTube channel dedicated to selling on Amazon, as well as a very active Instagram account. Why are you so passionate about sharing your journey? And has it helped you out as well? Or are you simply doing this just because you have a passion to help other people?
Unashamedly selfish here, right? I think I've watched a few videos where people are like making money on Instagram and YouTube, and I'm always looking for ways to like increase my revenue and revenue sources. So I was like, that could be me. I could be that person. I haven't turned out to be the wildly successful social media star that I envisioned. I do want to help people, right? So that's what keeps me going. I learned everything, pretty much a lot of what I know from YouTube and from social media about reselling from those platforms, right? Now I had to use my own like brain as a filter. You can't just take what everybody says. And a lot of times, if it sounds too good to be true, sometimes it is, right? But there's genuine people out there that do want to share their journey and want to see other people be successful. I think that's just part of who I am. I like to share that information. I like to build that community and just really help people out. It sounds sort of cliche to say, if I could just help one person, not like that's not going to be like a Hallmark movie of my life, helping that one person become a billionaire. I don't think, but when you get comments like, hey, thank you, that really helped, or something like that, that's really nice. And, I would like it to be, and it is, another revenue source as well. But it's tough to keep up with sometimes. Like I really respect people that are like influencers and put up on their social media, because for me, I'm like, man, it takes so much time to do the actual work of reselling, to actually document all that along the way is not an easy task.
Yeah, there are only so many hours in a day. So especially like people like you and I, like we have other jobs. And then on the side, we have this Amazon, which if you're going to do it right, consumes a lot of hours. And then to have the platforms on top of it, like YouTube and Instagram, there are only so many hours in a day to be able to do all of this. But you had me laughing, literally back here laughing with the, if I could only help one person for 10 cents a day. But it's true though. There are genuine people who they just want to help other people. And I can vouch for Justin. He definitely has this help people type of attitude. So I will be linking his YouTube channel and his Instagram down below in the description, The Winds of Change. So to keep up with Justin and to hear all of this good info that he shares with us for free, definitely go and follow him on both of those platforms. Thank you for all the time you've spent here with us, Justin, today. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this for my audience. So one last question for you. Leave us with, what do you think is your biggest and best piece of advice to new sellers?
My biggest piece of advice to new sellers would be to have the mindset of, this is going to be a business. This is going to be a long-term thing that I'm going to do. And it's not going to be get rich quick. It's going to be something that I'm going to steadily trot at. I'm going to continually put in the effort, and I'm going to get big benefits at the end. I think too many times it's presented as a way to make a bunch of money quickly, and you're going to be really disappointed, because that's just not what, for most people, the reality is going to be. So go into it with the mindset of, it's a business. Make sure you get all your tax stuff in order. Make sure you get, what you're going to need to record for the end of the year in order. Make sure that you have all those things in place, so that when your business does grow, you're not all of a sudden making $200,000 the first 6 months and then trying to figure out how to do all that. So build the structure, start small, build the confidence, and then just grow on there, and just keep going.
Justin is such a great guy. Thank you again for being here with me today. I really do appreciate the time you take out of your schedule to do this, to help people to learn and to be transparent with them. Again, if you have not, check his socials down in the description, because he is a cool dude and he is a good dude, and he is somebody who I am highly recommending to follow in order to exactly learn how to sell on Amazon. I hope that this video was very helpful for you. I know it was refreshing for me to talk to Justin and just see how many similarities there are with online sellers. I feel like we're bred from a certain breed of people, and we all kind of think and do things alike. It's just born into us to want to make money, to want to find all of these different ways to do that, and to be lifelong learners and pursue it and stick with it. Like Justin mentioned, there's a lot of obstacles that are going to get in your way. So you have to be prepared to face these and not throw in the towel too quickly. Learn, adjust, keep pivoting, and just keep selling. Each month is a new month. And if you stick with it, it is going to pay off for you. That's it for this one. Again, I am Cassandra with ProfitGuru. If you have not already, subscribe, turn on those notifications. I would love for you to tune in every week here with me. That's all, and I'll catch you in the next video.